Hi, and welcome to the Sage Seeking Sisters. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Stacy, and today we have with us our honored guest, Sarah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
hi,
you,
thanks, guys.
Yes. And welcome to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Thank you.
We were just talking about how everyone in Pittsburgh tends to come back. So you have family here, you can move back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Pittsburgh does
So
that.
I'm originally from Wisconsin, that we talked about, and then my sister married someone who's from Pittsburgh, lived here his whole life, has never left, and moved in with him. Obviously, before they got married, actually, and then now they live here, and so just kind of that transition of just life.
Yeah,
you know how
sure.
it goes.
Yes,
That transition
it
out
happens.
of my career into coaching, reprioritizing my family, wanting to be closer to my sister.
Yeah.
All that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
because
So,
your values change. That's why I came back to Pittsburgh, because I was overseas, and I was like, I miss everybody's growing older, and
yeah.
little me.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so we are so honored you're getting into the Hall of Fame. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah. Well, the whole Hall of Fame thing has been kind of like a crunched timeline a little bit, because they got a new athletic director. They just got a new women's basketball coach who's actually one of my former teammates. And so when I was in college, we had this run of just this team was so good. So essentially, like, for my freshman year, they had brought in 5 freshmen and 2 transfers. So we were, of 15, 7 of us were new bodies. And so our freshman year, we were good. And then my sophomore year, it was like everyone returned and they only brought in 1 person. And so it was like copy paste, like everything that was good now gets to be great. And so my sophomore year team, we had this crazy run. We went to the Sweet 16. Lost to Baylor by 10. Still, it's fine.
Wait, where were you? Which
We were in, I played at Wisconsin Green Bay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So originally from Wisconsin, stayed there, played there. So we were just like a small mid-major school, and kind of that like Cinderella story type thing that you look for in March Madness. We were always the underdog. Everyone kind of always underrated us. And we ended up making the Sweet 16 run, went down, played in the Dallas Mavericks Stadium in front of like 12,000 people. It was so overwhelming. And obviously we ended up losing that game, but that team is the team that's getting like honored and entered into the Hall of Fame of Green Bay in like 2 weeks, actually.
Wow.
Yes. And then tell us a little bit about your journey after college.
Yeah, so I essentially played, obviously, graduated, and then I played 1 year professionally overseas. When I was over there, it was great. I played with another American who's actually now married and I think has 2 kids, maybe 3 at this point, to someone who played on the men's team from our college. So it was like 4 of the 5 of us that graduated played overseas. We all crisscrossed, met each other, introduced this American that I played with to her now husband who played on the men's team.
Yes.
It was like all
That's how it
really
works.
super cool.
Yeah.
And in that season, I ended up tearing my hamstring, which I played on it for far too long, put me into a really long like recovery cycle, and ended up getting a coaching opportunity instead. So I was like, well, I'm not going back overseas. I might as well coach, right?
Yeah.
So then I got into coaching, and I was in that for 8 years. So I coached at 3 schools in that time. Just college basketball coach, just in the trenches with the girls all the time. It was great.
How lucky for them to have you, though. Seriously.
It was fun. It was definitely fun. It felt like, you asked if I was a mom yet, and I said no, but it felt like I was a mom.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Yes.
18 to 22-year-old women, but
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like,
Yes. Indeed. You
first
were, I'm
time
sure,
away
the
from the
mentor.
house.
Yes. A lot
So,
going on.
Yeah. Felt like
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time being mom role filler there for a lot of them, which was great. You know, I've always wanted to be a mom. I still do want to be a mom.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed that part of coaching for sure. And then pretty much we got to a point where I like tried a couple places. I moved back home to be like closer to family because it was just at that point. I was actually really struggling with my mental health at that time and had started going to therapy and doing all these different things to help myself cope. And then I moved back to Wisconsin to be closer to family. I coached for 4 more years before I was like, you know, I don't think this is it. It was a lot. It was a lot of work. It was a lot to manage with someone who was already like kind of struggling themselves, and then like trying to make this thing work that just wasn't really aligned anymore.
And that's okay. It wasn't for the season, right? You know, and there was a reason, and at least you were listening to your intuition, because I think so many people stay stuck because we've talked about that before, the fear of taking that risk. You know,
for sure.
And knowing that you need some support,
right?
Because we all do.
And I feel like it's not so commonly talked about either that like switching careers, like this wasn't a job, this was like a whole career,
right?
And you've got people that are in the industry that are like knocking on my door like, you have to choose, you're getting towards that age, like you're either going to be a lifer or you're going to get out. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like nobody. And I feel like I do really hard with those like really hard like strong boundaries where it's like you have to choose, and I'm like, no, I don't. I actually don't have to do anything you're telling me.
That's right. That's
awesome.
my kind of philosophy.
So I'm in the course of making my own rules. And
Wonderful.
So when somebody tells me they're like on this weird timeline where like you have to decide, I'm like, no, I don't.
Oh, you know what? Hallelujah. Because you know what? Poor children from such a young age are told that. What do you want to do when you grow up? You need to know what you're doing in 9th grade so you can plan it for graduation. And you have to major in a certain thing, and you have to say, why? Who says? No.
And I know my sister really struggled with that too. Like when we were in college, she's like, I have no idea what I want to do. And she's like, they're like, but you have to choose a major. And she's like, what do you mean? She left. We're just a family of just like, I don't think so. So she's like, no thanks.
But you're doing what you feel is the right thing for you instead of what someone else is telling you.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about.
And you know what? I can only imagine the pressure in sports with that stuff. Oh my goodness. What could you tell people as far as like, you know, those who have kids in sports or the younger generation growing up in it? Because I feel my little 11-year-old and the pressure that they have, and everybody's getting the clubs and the private training and the coaches, and you know, how about just enjoy it? Why is it this $1 million industry now, where most 5th and 6th graders across the country now drop out at that age because it's not fun anymore?
Well, and I think some of the parents are pushing so hard too because of the scholarships.
Yes. And because college tuition is insane.
Correct.
Oh, do we need reform in this country?
We just need to reel it all the way back and like try again. This is what needs to happen.
It's so true.
It is. It's so much pressure. And I actually was really blessed. Like my mom was like that person where I was so hyper competitive and just like so focused. And I would come home and be so mad. And she would be like, you know, if you're not having fun, you can just quit. And I'm like, no, like, what do you mean? Like, that's ridiculous.
You had that inner drive.
I had that in me. And so it was never an external pressure from my parents, which was so nice. And I see that now, having been a college coach and like dealing with the parents and watching the club. Because I never played club. I only played high school. So I flip-flopped between basketball and soccer. My seasons were super balanced, and like I never got any pressure in that way. I was just like, no, thank you. And I tried it. I did. I was in 8th grade, and there was a team. They were like, hey, come play with us. And I was like, okay, cool. We drove down to Kentucky for a tournament, and we were there, and I was like, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna do it again next weekend. I'm like, but what do you mean? Like, like I've been here for 5 days. Like, so I have 2 days to go home, and then we're gonna go to another one. And I'm like, and then when do I get to go to the beach and like be a kid? Like, I'm in 8th grade, and me at 8th grade is just like, I don't think that this is for me. Like, that's too much. Because I had an amazing high school coach who was like, lives 10 minutes down the road, was like, if you ever want to get shots up, just call me. And I would. It was like, I always used to joke with people that he was like, the Chinese delivery food person of basketball. Because whenever you call, you can place an order of 17 things, and the Chinese food place will be like, yeah, 10 minutes. And you're like, all right. I would call him and be like, hey, can we get some shots up? He'd be like, yeah, 10 minutes. Like, all right. Literally, weekends, late nights, didn't matter. He was just like, yep, 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I just worked on my game in my own time. I spent 2 hours in the gym every day, and then had the rest of the day to myself versus like going on these big, long, extravagant 5-day weekend tournaments that are like outrageously expensive.
Yes.
And so like, I think that what you are talking about is a lot of where that pressure comes from. Like, as parents, you're investing in this thing, and you're investing tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes, depending on the sport. And not that you're intentionally being like, okay, you have to get a scholarship now because I can't afford college because I spent all that money now.
Yeah.
Like, that's the pressure energetically that these kids are feeling.
Yeah.
And that was my whole thing going into it. I was like, if you're going to pay for a club, you might as well just save the money and pay for college if I don't get a scholarship. If I can't do it on my own, like, the money's the same anyway, so.
Right, now or later.
Just, like, we'll just shuffle it a little bit. So that was a big thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think that parents ever have the intention of doing that to their kids.
No,
I don't feel it in a malicious way, but the pressure of money is just a lot. There's so much going on in the world.
And you know what? Having lived over in Europe too, it's not like that everywhere. As far as the kids are allowed to be kids, they're not pushed for consumption and targeted and branding, and you don't see any of that. They can play outside all night. People are done working at 5. Stores are closed on Sundays. It was refreshing.
It was amazing.
Like, please ride my bike every day. You know.
Yeah, I actually have the.
So cool.
This is to honor my time in Copenhagen. Actually, it was the city of bikes, and it was the same thing.
Yes,
like,
that's how it was.
So refreshing.
Every day, right.
But they had their own lane and stoplights, and like it was like literally living in another world.
And you could be in a suit, a dress, old, young, rain, it doesn't matter.
It was amazing. And same thing, like it really did like shut down on the weekends. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't go to the grocery store because the grocery store was closed.
Right.
Like you're gonna have to figure it out until tomorrow.
It's called leisure.
Plan,
We
people.
Americans,
You don't know what that is.
working ourselves right into the grave.
Instant gratification that we have here is it's very interesting for sure. And addictive. Yeah, I know. I'm in it right now too, trying to get out of all that. So but that's a long-winded way to say. I essentially got out of coaching and started doing like sound healing stuff, and really started focusing on, I switched from talk therapy to somatic therapy, really started working in my body and trying to regulate my nervous system. I feel like our nervous systems as a society are so dysregulated because of all of that. All that stuff that's thrown at us all the time. And
have you read The Body Keeps Score?
I started to read it. I got like 30 pages in, and the story they were telling about the veteran that's in that book, I was just like sobbing. I'm like, I need a break from this book. But I am going to be going back to it. I'm like literally entering a season right now of like another deep dive into self-exploration. I've like closed down all my social medias, made it known to the public, like, hey, I'm going offline. If you need me, like, email me. I will not be on Instagram.
Or call me.
But like business-wise, like if you need me, email me. If you want to collaborate for an event, sure, I'd love to meet up, but I'm not checking Instagram DMs. I'm off. Like I can't right now because I'm just trying to recalibrate myself again to a whole nother layer of nervous system regulation.
That's
like,
right.
It was working for me for a while, and I got to this point. Now I'm like, okay, now I got to go back into solitude and recalibrate, and then adjust my life accordingly.
Oh, you're speaking my language.
Having awareness.
That's
do it. Is key too.
That's it.
So
because people don't even realize what their triggers are, or when they are. It took, honestly, it's only the last few years working with Chris Wolf, one of our first interviews, where we go into this like toning meditation, and I would just feel joy after, or peace, serenity. Nothing changed externally in my world, but I was able to access within because I was listening and calming the regulation.
1000%.
It is. I mean, it's within us.
I know.
We don't have to take pills necessarily.
Some people need them, and I understand that, and also I think that there's a huge disservice done that if you don't at least try to do the work first before you then go to the medication. I feel like if you can give yourself 90 days of intentional, like, okay, I'm really going to try to focus on healing this pattern within myself, and if I still need help, okay. Something. Absolutely. But I mean, it just, looking at it, like, if you were to take my story and really zoom out, it really is just that repeating of that re-regulation. You know, you can see me slowly transitioning out of less and less stressful environments, because now, as I fix my internal, my external, it starts to feel too chaotic, and then I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna need to shift that. So then I kind of like down regulate there, and then I get to sit there for a little while. I'm like, okay, this is good, I can handle this. And then you think you're done, but you're not.
No.
And then you re-regulate yourself again, and then all of a sudden your world that used to be calm is like really chaotic again, and you're like, wait, and then you have to take another step back.
Yes.
Like, okay. All right, we're gonna slow down a little bit more.
Yeah, but that self-awareness is key.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I mean, coming from that sports background, those patterns are they're so tough for me, because you're just you're supposed to be uncomfortable. This is supposed to be hard. You're supposed to feel miserable. Like actually just like take yourself out of your body, like the dissociation codes that I have in my mind where I like start to feel uncomfortable, and I'm just like, I just won't think about it. And your body will do the thing, and I'm just like, ooh, yikes. You know, so there's just a lot of
you're
work.
so evolved. Oh my goodness.
A lot of work that needs to be done still, but you know, at the same time, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Process. Yeah, that's wonderful. You're ahead of the game, sister.
That's where I'm at. I'm like, fingers crossed one day, you know, after this re-regulation, I'll get some new opportunities, and my world will kind of like fall into place outside of, you know, the chaos that it is right now.
It will.
It's feeling a little chaotic, so I'm like,
okay.
all right, we're gonna take a step back.
Yes. Because it does, like, life mirrors to us where we're at internally.
Exactly.
I think it does for sure.
Or where we still listening.
Where the where the wounds still are, where the healing still needs to occur.
Right. Right.
So, any last minute advice?
Any last piece of advice?
Man, I think what you were talking about before we just started, that self-compassion piece is huge. And if the more grace that we can have with ourselves as we kind of move through these transitions, the better. I mean, I, as someone who was an athlete, was so traditionally hard on myself, which made me a great athlete. That's what made me so good. I was so hard on myself. And there's a balance there of like, if I don't get it right the first time, especially on this healing journey, I've learned I can't do anything right, that it's okay, you know, and having that truly self-compassion, and not just saying like, oh yeah, I love myself. I'm like, do you though? Are you compassionate? Are you giving yourself grace in the times that you messed up?
Right. Or are you your biggest critic?
Right.
Which,
Well, we got the basketball.
We do have the basketball.
So we'll do a little drill or whatever you want to show us.
You guys play? Have you played?
I don't really play. I mean, I can play horse.
All right, I'll teach you one thing. Okay, so if you're standing here, your goal is to hit the top corner of the backboard of this square. Right there.
Make sure I'm not in the way.
Right? So if I'm shooting from here to like, you know, this would be a layup or like a post move. Like general area that I'm shooting for is that top right corner of this small square. And typically if you hit it, it'll go in.
Okay.
Every time.
Excellent. All right, I'll give it a shot.
Are you going to try it? I think you both a shot.
Nope, not close.
That's all right. You can throw it harder than you think. There you go.
Oh, geez.
Okay, find the target first. There you go.
There you go.
You going
Got it.
Oh, that was close.
Try one more.
One more.
Oh. You got it. Come on.
That's all right.
You got it, sister.
Okay.
Woo!
I was going to say, third time's a charm for both of you. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.